Hello and welcome to this conversation on Bloomberg Quint. There's one issue pertaining to the banking sector that refuses to die down, go out of the headlines, and that's the issue of bad loans. Last reported numbers as of the December quarter tell us that bad loans, gross NPAs, are at 7 trillion, just a little above that now, that's 7 lakh crore. Joining us to have a conversation on the problem, possible solutions, which have been tough to find, is Rennie Thomas, Senior Partner and Head of the Financial Services Practice at McKinsey. Rennie, thanks so much, really appreciate your time. Rennie, first the numbers. I think you wrote an editorial a few months back, and at that time we were at some 5.6 lakh crore or something. We're at 7 lakh crore, and we're at that end of the sort of recognition period which the former RBI governor had set. Has the number surprised you? How far it's come from, say, September 15 numbers? What was the reported gross NPA number then, and what it is now?
Yeah, so clearly we're far away from seeing the end of this episode. I think if you look at the reported recognized numbers, it's about 9 trillion of stress loans, the system of which about 3 trillion have been provided for, right? So we've got about a situation where we've got about 6 trillion which is actually not provided for in the banking system. Now if you compare that with the total net worth in the banking system, which is about 8 trillion, that's a very uncomfortable situation to be in. And then you have likely more slippages, to your point. So it's not that we've seen the end of the cycle of slippages, right? So given that, I think the numbers remain worrying, and they actually and the coverage levels are probably a third of the way in terms of getting the full coverage levels, right?
Okay, so two things. So one, you're saying that recognition also in itself may not be complete yet, or is that process more or less over? Recognition of loans which were perhaps underreported as gross NPAs and now being classified as gross NPAs, is that process more or less complete?
See, this is a fairly dynamic environment, right? When you are in a vicious cycle and you have the industrial part of the economy slowing, what you find is what you might see as a company with an interest coverage ratio which was acceptable. As the economy slows further, you find that they're not able to service the debt as well. So some of these slippages are not because of lack of recognition or lack of applying the right yardsticks. It's more because when you're in this vicious cycle, actually more and more companies slip into this into the stress category, because the income levels don't rise because the whole that part of the economy starts slowing down. So that process actually will continue to play through. And will lead to more slippages unless something is done to break this vicious cycle, where the high levels of leverage are effectively limiting job creation and effectively income. That actually leads to a situation where more and more downstream effects, including on the mid-tier companies and the SMEs, starts to actually worsen over time.
Okay, and I'll just come to that in a minute. So you're saying 6 trillion is not provided for. Just explain that. You're saying there's under provisioning even now dramatically in
no, this is not under provisioning. This is basically the facts of based on whatever's the banks are supposed to provide, they are providing, but these the provision levels are staggered over a period of time, right? So they are following the schedule of provisions.
Okay, so you're
but if you look at what the total level of stress loans is and what the provision levels are, there is that gap there. Now, in the normal scheme of things, if you had a resolution mechanism in place which would help these assets recover and the loans come back, you wouldn't be worried. But if you look at the reality on the ground in terms of real resolution going on, we're not seeing too much of resolution happening. So in the normal scheme of things, if resolution happened, let's say you recover 50-60% of these loans eventually, then you're well provided for. But in this scenario where we actually not having resolution, the possibility of having a large scale liquidation starts increasing. And if liquidation happens, everyone loses value. The banks lose value, the shareholders lose value. Also the economy suffers because there's actually a loss of jobs, there's actually a downstream effect on the SMEs, and that actually further worsens the asset quality in the system. So the reason this is worrying is less just because of the headline numbers, which actually are in line with what needs to be provided, but the fact that there's a lack of activity on resolution, which then leads to the possibility of more slippages, and also the unwanted scenario of recovery and liquidation, and that is actually a very suboptimal situation to be in.
So now let's come to the resolution, Reni. I mean, so when the RBI started this process, they said we will also give banks the tool to resolve. So there was, STR before that, there was 525, partly for infrastructure, there was STR, there was S4A. So, I mean, what are you seeing on the ground that none of this seems to be working, and why then?
No, so if you look at what's coming in the way, there are, several reasons, right? One is the fundamentally disaggregated nature of the loans, right? If, in the sense that in most instances there are at least a dozen lenders, and in some maybe up to 30 lenders. Some instances, some of these loans have been sold in part to ERCs. Now each one of them has different time horizon, different objectives, and sometimes it becomes difficult to converge everyone into the same resolution path. So that's actually one major factor. Second major factor is there's often very little sectoral coordination. In some of these instances, a sectoral solution is required, particularly in categories like infrastructure, including power. The time horizon of these resolutions may be much longer, and that will basically means very difficult to get private investors in. So having a clear view on the sector outlook and how the demand capacity of that will actually play out over time is an important part of the resolution process, and actually more of that needs to happen. And finally, in some of these instances, small tweaks may be required in the resolution framework. For example, in many instances, the sustainable debt might be actually less than 50%, and therefore some of these provisions may actually not work, and therefore a much more segmented and nuanced approach might be required to make resolution happen.
I think, the reason the regulator is reluctant to do that is because they fear that you'll go back to a CDR kind of system, which essentially just delayed a problem which we should have started tackling, 6 years back, right?
So that's right. I think the issue is we need resolution, not kicking the can down the road.
Exactly. So it's a tough line to...
Yeah, so if these provisions were provided to allow for resolution, but if you've not had a lot of resolution, it's actually, in many instances, the core earnings and the core asset has not, the income generation of that has not changed trajectory, and which basically means that you have the same problem further down the road, and then with an even higher level of debt and lower income level. So that's actually a major issue. And the thing to also keep in mind is that in a growing market like India, the premise that if you kick the can down the road long enough, then
it'll resolve
itself is actually doesn't really hold true, and frankly is something the country can ill afford, because it'll lead to years and years of below potential growth. Fortunately, as a country, we're blessed with having a high consumption demand and having a very strong services industry, but the industrial part of the economy has to pick up, and if we're going to allow it to actually grow below potential for years and years, it'll have a knockdown effect on the rest of the economy.
What about private ARCs, Reni? Why is that not kicked off in the way that people would like it to? There were capital issues, but those capital issues the RBI tried to resolve, right? They allowed single promoter. We had a bunch of announcements around stressed debt funds and some tie-ups with banks. But is there traction coming there that has not started yet?
Again, it's similar set of issues in the sense that loan aggregation sometimes is not easy, and them going and trying to aggregate loans individually from the banks is often a very tough process. The second, to get a full large exposure on board is often a very large ticket size, and they may not just have the capital to deal with a big very large exposure. With some of the in the steel and the power sectors, there are very large exposures which are contributing to the stressed loans. And the third, you actually need a very high level of sector expertise and turnaround expertise, which is still developing in India. And the reality is a pure financial play, where you're just trying to hold the asset and hoping it'll recover in 5 years' time, is not providing the returns. And as a result, it requires a lot more heavy intervention to actually restructure the asset, often strengthen the management teams and put it on a path of actually recovery.
Okay, so then in that context, even if there's a public asset reconstruction agency, which seems like what's being suggested in the economic survey, or at least being discussed in the economic survey, does that help in any way?
I think some newer resolution mechanisms will be important. Maybe useful to look at what's happened is examples in other parts of the world, and how these have actually helped address the situation. If you look at, for example, markets like Spain or Indonesia, which went through a banking sector crisis, they did create some sort of a central utility. For example, In Indonesia, they created IBRA, which actually aggregated loans. They bought these loans at zero face value, and they went about recovering value. Eventually, they recovered about 25% of value, but the government had to recapitalize the system. In Spain, for real estate assets, the Spain part of the banking sector crisis was because of real estate. They actually created a utility called Sareb, in which the government owned 45% and institutions owned 55%. And they quarantined these real estate assets for a 15-year period. And they were able to get funding to actually do that, but they took it off the banking system, right? So those are some ways that a central utility helped. The other examples much talked about is the TOP program in the US. For instance, look at General Motors. The whole auto industry was under major stress, so the government directly infused capital into the company. They bought about 60% of the company, putting in $50 billion, and which they eventually sold over a period of time, right? Which helped the sector bounce back and recover. There's a third example where instead of creating a bad bank, you create much more of an asset management company. This works particularly in commercial assets which have an income potential and potential to come back if put on the right restructuring path. In these instances, the banks basically got together, broke up the loans into the sustainable part and the unsustainable part. The sustainable part was made as a performing loan. The unsustainable part was converted into equity. And these equity rights were aggregated across all the banks and transferred to a management company. This management company then took control of the asset and ran the asset on behalf of the banks to actually drive an operational turnaround in many instances and drive the earnings. So then would sell that asset at the right period of time to recover enough value for the banks. So there's another mechanism that was used in some markets. But you see these 3-4 resolution mechanisms. I think we'll need a combination of these in India. I don't think there'll be a silver bullet solution. There will be segments that can actually recover through an asset management kind of structure because the nature of the assets, and this might be true in entity sectors like steel and textiles and others where we have a cyclical effect. So you might be able to attract private capital to come in if put on a restructuring path. But there will be other categories like infrastructure where it might be a much longer lead time, which might need some notion of government capital coming in to ensure that these assets can be quarantined and actually valued over a period of time.
It seems like in the first two suggestions, the need for government capital would be far higher, but the third one may not be, or the three.
That's right. That's right. So I think and we have to find solutions in India to get private capital in. And the advantage of the third suggestion is that you actually are not really, needing a large-scale capital infusion, but you only need additional capital to the extent of working capital or other inputs required to restart the company's operations, which is often a fraction of, and you actually disaggregating the decision on writing down the loan from recovering value. So banks recover more value through the equity when it's actually eventually sold. So that's a resolution mechanism, particularly in sectors like steel and textiles in India, might actually work quite well.
Sounds interesting. This capital problem, Reni, so we all make a lot of it. We write about it very often. Bankers seem to crib about it all the time, but the government doesn't seem particularly, concerned. I'm not asking you for a view on the government, but is the capital problem severe for banks right now? Or is it manageable according to you?
It depends on how you look at it. So the capital problem, or can be seen as both as an opportunity or a problem, depending on which side of the coin you're looking at. The reality is in a sector like India, in a country like India with the growth potential that we have, the banking sector as a whole will always grow ahead of the GDP. And it will attract capital, right? Because there's value to be created. Now the question is, who will attract that capital? It will be the banks that are performing better, the banks that are actually stronger. So we have a situation where the state-owned banks are under significant pressure because they're carrying the lion's share of the NPAs at this point of time, and they also have the challenge of actually how to rework these assets. Now there's a way around it where they will not grow at the same pace, or they will shrink their balance sheets or shed loans that they don't need to have. So there's a way around managing that capital, but the implication of that is going to be that the industry structure will shift pretty significantly. And we already see that happening. I think for years you had an industry structure where the state-owned banks had about 77-78% of the balance sheet of the banking system. The private sector banks had about 17-18%, and you had the foreign banks having those about 6%. If you look at it now, it's much closer to the private sector banks are closer to a quarter of the assets in the system. And if this continues, that will only increase. And of course, if those private sector banks are doing well, they will continue to attract a lot of capital. And so the banking system overall, will have the requisite capital, but the industry structure might shift pretty significantly away from the historically state-owned bank dominated industry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not good or bad. It's just a shift, right? One doesn't need to see it as good or bad, except that this may not be the optimal way to shift the industry structure away from state-owned banks, right?
But this is market forces at play, right? And this is something which will play out given the nature of the dynamics in the industry.
Sure. This last question, Reni, in the middle of all of this, there are long-term issues, agendas, whether it's privatization, consolidation, etc. Do we forget about that for now, park it till we can resolve this NPA problem?
It's an interesting question. If we again empirically look at how economies have gone through a banking sector crisis, almost every time it's been the resolution has actually been in tandem with the banking sector consolidation.
Oh, is it?
So whether you look at Indonesia, whether you look at Spain, fundamentally the industry goes through consolidation, and that's how it's empirically played out. Now we'll have to see how it plays out in India. So I don't think these are entirely separate issues, because often the moment you're trying to get the NPA problem resolved, you immediately figure out that the loan disaggregation is a problem. You figure out that having 25 different management teams is actually suboptimal, and then a lot of decisions around on consolidation happen. So it's interesting, and that's actually how it's empirically played out globally, that you do have consolidation whenever there's a significant banking sector challenge.
That's interesting. Maybe that conversation will start. Thanks, Reni. Appreciate this conversation.
Welcome.